Welcome to the Seasons Leadership Podcast, where we celebrate transforming your leadership journey. We bring you actionable advice to improve your leadership and life today. I'm Susan Ireland, and together with my co-founder, Debbie Collard, we thank you for joining us. At Seasons Leadership, we share a vision to make excellent leadership the worldwide standard. Today, we have the honor to talk with Alan Mulally and Sarah McArthur. Both Debbie and I worked with Alan at Boeing and experienced the power of his working together leadership and management system. As a matter of fact, we participated in the implementation of these on the Boeing programs where we worked, and we incorporated them into Seasons leadership from the start. We recently met Sarah McArthur through Alan, and we are delighted to have her join the conversation.
Alan Mulally served as President and Chief Executive Officer of the Ford Motor Company and as a member of Ford's Board of Directors from 2006 to 2014. Mulally led Ford's transformation into one of the world's leading automobile companies and the #1 automobile brand in the United States. He guided Ford in working together on a compelling vision, comprehensive strategy, and implementation of the One Ford plan to deliver profitable growth for all of the company's stakeholders. Prior to joining Ford, Mulally served as Executive Vice President of the Boeing Company, President and CEO of Boeing Commercial Airplanes, and President of Boeing Information, Space, and Defense Systems from 1969 to 2006, where he created his Working Together leadership and management system. Throughout his career, Mulally has developed and nurtured his Working Together leadership and management system and its connected culture of love by design to create value for all stakeholders and the greater good. Mulally has been recognized for his contributions, industry leadership, and service, including being named #3 on Fortune's World's Greatest Leaders, one of the 30 World's Best CEOs by Barron's Magazine, one of the world's most influential people by Time Magazine, Chief Executive of the Year by Chief Executive Magazine, and Leader of the Future by the Frances Hesselbein Leadership Institute in 2006. He was also honored with the American Society for Quality's Medal for Excellence in Executive Leadership, the Automotive Executive of the Year, and the Thomas Edison Achievement Award. Mulally is a Museum of Flight Pathfinder and a member of the Automobile Hall of Fame. Alan previously served on President Obama's United States Export Council. He served as co-chairman of the Washington Competitiveness Council and has served on the advisory boards of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, the University of Washington, the University of Kansas, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and the United States Air Force Scientific Advisory Board. Mulally has also served as president of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics and as chairman of the board of governors of the Aerospace Industries Association. Mulally is a member of the United States National Academy of Engineering and a fellow of England's Royal Academy of Engineering. Mulally currently serves on the board of directors of Google, Carbon 3D, and the Mayo Clinic. He holds bachelor's and master of science degrees in aeronautical and astronautical engineering from the University of Kansas and a master's in management from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology as an Alfred P. Sloan Fellow.
Sarah McArthur is editor-in-chief of the Apex award-winning Leader to Leader journal, founded by Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient Frances Hesselbein, and partner and trusted advisor to former CEO of Boeing and Ford, Alan Mulally, considered one of the greatest leaders of the 21st century. Sarah's mission is to help leaders work together towards a bright future for all. Her fields of expertise are leadership, management, personal leadership development, and executive and business coaching. She is currently producing Defining Moments, a documentary about Frances Hesselbein with Emmy award-winning documentarians David and Beverly Schlur. Sarah has authored and edited many books, including Making Waves with former CEO of Celebrity Cruises, Lisa Ledoff Perlow, and Work is Love Made Visible with Marshall Goldsmith and Frances Hesselbein, forward by Alan Mulally. Former COO of Marshall Goldsmith, Inc. between 2000 and 2020, Sarah led many initiatives, projects, and programs, including the 100 Coaches and the New York Times and Wall Street Journal best-selling Triggers and What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Welcome, Alan and Sarah. Well, that introduction just gave me chills. I just can't believe that here we are together having this conversation with you, Alan, and Sarah. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I just have to pinch myself. And Alan, you've been my leadership hero. So many years ago at the beginning of the 777 program when I first met you. And you remembered me in the hallway when we were walking, and you said, "Hi, Susan, you got new glasses." And I was just blown away because I met you just for a brief meeting, maybe 10 minutes, months before that time. And leaders didn't do that to me. I was respected and people liked the work that I did, but you were chief engineer of the 777 at that time and way above me positionally. And there you did remember my name and even remembered that I had new glasses. So that's amazing. That's an amazing thing.
Well, I absolutely love respecting talented people that know how to work together.
Well, it really from that moment on, really, I thought this is a leader who I really respect and I want to follow. And so it's been since that time that I've continued to learn from you and and benefit from your leadership.
Great.
Thank you.
And we're very excited to be able to have this conversation today about the working together leadership and management system and the connected and collaborative culture of Love by Design. This really creates values for all stakeholders and the greater good, as you emphasize, Alan. And really, bottom line, it's love and leadership in action.
That's right. And we also want to thank you for introducing us to Sarah. As leadership coaches, meeting and working with Sarah is such a great honor. And she has made so many contributions to the world through her work as a leadership coach, worked with Frances Hesselbein, COO for Marshall Goldsmith, working with you and your Working Together partnership. She's an editor of Leader to Leader journal, which is the best out there. It's just, it's almost too much for me to take in that this is going to be such a great conversation. Thank you. Thank you both for being here.
So happy to be here. So honored to be here. Thank you.
So, Alan, we already shared this entire bio in the introduction, but there's so many highlights. It's hard to know where to focus on here, but we are so honored to have you here with all that you've experienced in your life. And more than anything, with your willingness to give back, to give to the greater good and continue that contribution throughout your life. It's magical.
Well,
Alan,
absolute pleasure.
Alan, I have a question for you.
Yes.
When you heard your intro and see this, how do you feel?
Well, well, that's an interesting question. Um, well, the first thing is that remember when you said, and Alan was named by Fortune to be the #3 best leader in the world. So I've had so many people say to me, "So Alan, what do you think about that? I mean, we all really love you, and we think you should be #1." I said, "Well, yeah, I'm really okay because the Pope was #1, and like you, I'm still trying to get to heaven."
That's great.
Great answer. Great answer. Okay, so let's go through the discussion guide questions. We want to make sure that we are able to cover today the most important aspects of the working together principles and practices for all of our listeners. And so we're going to cover these 4 questions as we go through the presentation today. So if you've got your presentations handy, make sure you're following along as we talk about each of these questions.
Great.
Alan, I have a question for you to start us off.
Oops, excuse me.
Yes.
You've served your family, Boeing, Ford, communities around the world in such a positive way over the years. So will you start us off with sharing your working together, leadership formation, development, and service journey?
Absolutely. And I think, Debbie, that's a really great way to start. I also like to emphasize what you just said about the document in the slides. And Sarah and I have had a fantastic time putting together a set of slides to answer these fantastic questions that you're asking. It's probably the most comprehensive interview that we've ever had. And so we'll be referencing those slides. Some of them I'll spend a little bit more time on, some of them a little bit less. But you'll have all of that following the video. So again, thanks a lot for working together with us on that. Okay, your first question. Sarah, if we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, now, in the document that we have for you, that you have now, we have a set of references at the back that cover everything associated with our working together leadership and management system and its connected culture of love by design to create value for all the stakeholders and the greater good. And with respect to your question, I never really ever talked about myself, as you guys know. And so one day, a couple of years ago, Frances Hasselbein and Marshall Goldsmith and our Sarah here today came to see me. And they said, okay, Alan, we're going to write a book. And we're writing a book. And they already had a draft. And the title of the book is Work is Love Made Visible, you can see on the slide. And we'd like you to write the foreword. And I said, whoa, well, why do you want me to do that? And I said, the title looks like phenomenal. It's going to help everybody understand how to determine what their purpose in life is and how to do it and be it. And so why me for the foreword? And he said, well, we think that you're one of the best examples of how to, as Francis would say, how to be and also how to do, where you're serving with humility and love. And so we'd like you to share your story. I said, whoa, well, I've read the draft and you have lots of great authors, 33 of them talking about this. And I don't know how I could add value. And they said, well, I think that you ought to just share your story. And I think people are going to learn a lot. I said, well, where do you want me to start? And Frances gets real close to me and she says, Alan, when you were born. Oh, so, and then discuss your formation from the day you were born, through your education and then your service at Boeing and Ford and your family. And I said, okay, so they left. I got a piece of paper out and I started writing this down. And I had never done this before because I'd never shared. I really had never written down at one time my entire life story. And so I started to be really fun. It kind of looks like it's written by an engineer because I have bullet points and focusing and stuff like that. So I finished it and I sent it back to them. And they and Wiley had no suggestions to improve it. I couldn't believe it. And that they liked it so well. So we've included that forward here in these set of slides, but I also summarized it for you on slide 9. So you have this in your document and in your references, and this is the only time I've ever shared my entire life story and why I am who I am, and why I do what I do and how I do it. So Sarah, if we can go to number 9. Okay, so here is my formation, my development, and my service journey. And if you look on the left-hand side, I wrote down things I learned from my parents and Dr. Reverend Turner of the Congregational Church, who's famous. That actually, I grew up in Lawrence, Kansas, and then he actually went to Seattle and was leading everything up there. And then I got a chance to be with him again when I joined Boeing. So I learned so much from them, and you can see down the left-hand side. And the interesting thing about this, you guys, is that this is the way I learned it. So my parents, we didn't have very many resources, but we had a lot of love in our families, starting with from our mom and dad. And so every morning on the way to school, on the way out the door, my parents would stop me and say, "So Alan, do you remember what the purpose of life is?" And I said, "Oh yeah, Mom, you really shared that with me very clearly. It's the purpose of life is to love and be loved." And then she'd say, "Honey, remember, in that order." "Oh yeah, Mom, thanks. Okay, good, good." And then the next day my dad would say, "Remember, Alan, to serve is to live." "Thanks, Dad." Next day, one of them, to seek to understand before seeking to be understood. By working together with others, you can make the most positive contribution to the most people in our world. Expect the unexpected and expect to deal with it in a positive way. Lifelong learning and continuous improvement, and respect everyone. We're all creatures of God and worthy to be loved. And then develop one integrated life, which is your life's work of service. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the interview. And now this one, you guys, I'll never forget. It's nice to be important, honey, but it's more important to be nice. Thanks, Mom and Dad. Okay, so now moving over on the right-hand side, we didn't have any resources. And so the service to live and loving people up and including everybody, I started to do that. I had just job after job, every job you could possibly think of from the day I can remember. And not only did I enjoy serving, but oh my gosh, the response I'd get back from serving others was incredible. And a lot of times they would pay me for it. Like when I was all my little jobs, or when especially I was at the grocery store and I was a bagger and I was a checker. And the Dillon's grocery store said I was the first checker that they ever saw where people coming through the line would give me a tip. So, I mean, this working together is fantastic. And I also liked including everybody because I just loved working with others to create value. So I continued my education at the University of Kansas and MIT, as you pointed out, Debbie. And then Nikki and I met her at the University of Kansas. We've been married for 53 years and we have 5 children. And of course, learned a lot about working together with a connected culture of love by design for the good of all of us. And then I loved technology. I loved physics. I loved airplanes. I loved math, and I loved people. And my thesis advisor at University of Kansas had been a senior leader at the Boeing company in aerodynamics. And we had a lot of contract work with them, and he would take me to Seattle. And I had never been outside of the state of Kansas. And whoa, Seattle's the coolest place I'd ever been. I met all the engineers. And I go, wow, this is phenomenal. And what really got them about me, Deborah and Susan, was that the engineers would talk about how they were making products that were getting people together around the world. And the 707 was out before the internet. So we were the first people to get people together around the world. And the engineers would say, and that is the neatest thing, is you find out that we have more in common than we're different. And then we can work together for the greater good. So Boeing was like, I was in love from day one. And I also served on the design team of every Boeing airplane, the 707, the 727, the 737, the 747, the 757, the 767. And then Boeing asked me to serve as the engineering leader for the 777 airplane. And then when I was the CEO, we also launched the 787. And if you look at all the seats that are flying over the years today, that 70% of all the seats are in Boeing airplanes. And that's why people say, if it's not a Boeing airplane, I'm not going. So I absolutely loved it. And then I learned about working together. my gosh, when you have an airplane like the 777 that has 4 million parts, that flies halfway around the world, and you think about the quality and the fuel efficiency and the safety and the systems engineering, it is really working together at the highest level. Now, did they have a little bit of command and control along with that? Yes, they did. But I learned a lot about working together from one of the finest working together companies in the world. And then when we got to the 777, along with you, Debbie, and you, Susan, we took working together to another level of performance by including all the stakeholders and sharing everything about it, the operating process we committed to, the expected behaviors, and we created on schedule something that had never been done before, that on day one, the airplane could fly halfway around the world. And it was the preferred airplane of all the airlines ever since. And then I got a call from Bill Ford. I never thought I would leave. And I'm going, Bill Ford, I mean, the great grandson of Henry Ford. And he shared with me the story. And the more he shared with me, the worse it got. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go through the interview. And so people always ask me, why would you leave as a CEO and go to Ford when they were in such very, very tough shape? And I said, well, at the end of the day, I thought I was being asked to serve a second American and global icon. And if it wasn't for Ford and Boeing working together during World War II, we never would have got through World War II in the way we did, in such a positive way. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then I took the working together leadership and management system there and used the very same system that we all, including you two, that we helped create at Ford. And it helped not only save Ford, but also create an exciting, profitably growing Ford for the benefit of everybody. And now the last part of my formation and development is I get a chance and an opportunity and an honor to serve by sharing this story so that others can further develop their working together leadership and management system. And you can see at the bottom, humility, love, and service. And this is what came from Francis and Sarah and Marshall when we did the book, because they have been watching all these leaders over the years. And they said, if we have to describe you, Alan, this is how we describe you, is that you lead, you serve, but you serve with humility and love for the greater good worldwide. Now, with that, I'd look forward to your next question.
All right. So these working together principles, Alan, you are well known for these, and especially the connected culture of love by design. Can you talk to us more about this?
Absolutely. So next slide, please, Sarah. Okay, here they are. I know it's on one slide. Everything about this is on this slide. And we created this on the 777, where we took that fabulous working together culture to the next level of performance. And you can see, it's, as you pointed out, Susan, the principles, the practices, and a connected culture. And I many times will add in connected and collaborative. Not only are you connected, but you're collaborating with this process. And it's a culture of love by design, meaning that we love all the participants, but we created and designed this culture very specifically, as you also pointed out. And so it includes the operating processes we use to design and produce the airplane and work together with all the stakeholders, but also the expected behaviors of all the participants. So we were developing a skilled and a healthy and a safe and motivated teams on every one of these programs. So you can see the first one on the left, people first, love them up. I have been told, which is funny the way people tell me, is, Alan, you're the first CEO we've ever heard use the word love, especially love them up. And of course, and they always started with, tell us more about that. I said, and you think about my parents, what I learned growing up. is that these are human beings. They have committed to make the best airplanes, safe and efficient airplanes in the world. They're talented. They got the greatest attitude and skills, and you just can't love them up enough. I mean, you say good morning with an exclamation mark, and you say thank you all day long. Everyone's included, all the stakeholders, which has never, ever been done the way we do it with this program. So, you know, that not only all your wonderful employees, but also all your suppliers, the communities in which we operate, and the airplanes are in and out of, the certification agencies, the investors, the bankers, everybody we include, and they're represented actually on the leadership team by the leadership team members, you know, whether it's engineering, manufacturing, procurement, legal, government, community relations, everybody is representing all those suppliers, all those stakeholders. All starts with a compelling vision, comprehensive strategy, and relentless implementation. And the whole thing about the 777, for example, is people working together to produce the preferred new airplane family. And we have never shared that with everybody. We were creating the entire family, so they would not only have the initial airplane, but also when they would increase their range, increase their size, increase their efficiency. So having a strategy for achieving that, product, process, people, everything about it, and a positive implementation, just relentlessly implementing it. And that's the business plan review, which we're going to talk about. Clear performance goals, quality, fuel efficiency, safety, systems engineering, reliability, maintainability, profitability, growth, and margins, everything. One plan, and most companies, they have a lot of plans. Everybody's wondering what the plan is, but we go out of our way to make sure everybody knows the plan in detail. Facts and data, we love what you think. We love your opinions, but we also want to know what the facts and data are that you are looking at. Because when we do have a red or a yellow that needs special attention, then we all have the same data that you have, so we can move very aggressively and timely to turn the reds to yellows to greens. And then moving over on the right-hand side, you can see getting back down more to the behaviors, and you can see expect the unexpected and expect to deal with it in a positive way. Thank you, Mom and Dad. And everyone knows the plan, the status, and the areas of special attention. This is very rare. We share all the technical issues. We share the financial situation, everything we share with everybody, including all the stakeholders. And then because they know that, then we know the areas that we're working on special attention. And you can see our very sophisticated words on the behavior: propose a plan, positive, find a way, respect each other, listen to each other, help each other, appreciate each other. And you can see that these are not really sophisticated value and beliefs. I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist. And what everybody wanted to know was, what are the behaviors? Because then we can follow those. And we also had zero tolerance for violating the behaviors or following the process. Emotional resilience is a whole different definition, because all you have to do is trust the process. You run into an issue, you got to share it with everybody, go right back up the top, make sure you got everybody, and you're going to be able to turn the reds to yellows to green. Have fun, enjoy the journey in each other. And I know the three of you know this so well. To be able to serve like we've been doing, I say thank you in the morning, I say thank you at night, and just like today, you get a chance to enjoy the journey and each other of the people that you have had a chance to work together with. Now, there's one corollary to this, and that is zero tolerance for violating the operating process, the business plan review, the meetings you have, how we do it, the leadership team, and the expected behaviors. And so we all had this on a card. Everybody was carrying it around. We had it in every room that we meet. And if you start to get on the phone, or you look at your computer, or you start a side conversation, we just all stop and look at you. And you can imagine when the CEO looks at you because you're not paying attention, and we have only one slide in the business plan review, and we have linked all around the world, and everybody's watching. And so it doesn't take everybody long to get really, really focused on these behaviors. And also if it doesn't work for you and you love command and control, and that's the way you've done it, and then I say to you, it's okay. And they say, oh, it's okay because I'm so important that I can keep operating this way and not love everybody up. I said, no, okay means that you're really deciding to move on, and it's okay. And we still love you, the first principle. You're a great person. PGA, the result, profitable growth for all, not a professional golf association. Because, and I always use this really simply, as you know, because profit equals revenue times margins. And so great companies make products and services that people want and value, and actually pay for them. And they also simultaneously work on the margins, which is the quality and the productivity. And so while working on both of those, you can create an organization that is profitably growing, that then benefits all of the stakeholders and the greater good. So the result is creating value for all the stakeholders and the greater good. So now, any questions about this before we, I guess a few more examples to say about Ford and Boeing and Ford.
Yeah, before we get to that, I have a question for you, Alan. So I love the stuff on here, obviously, since we adopted it and use it ourselves. I have, as you said, pretty much everything on this one page. And I especially like the first bullet of people first love them up, and the last bullet of having fun, enjoying the journey and each other, but it's all important. There's one thing you didn't talk about on this slide, and I'm super curious about. In the bottom right-hand corner is your signature with a little airplane drawn. Could you tell us about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, okay, here's the story. So when I was when I was serving as a leader of engineering, then the salespeople in Boeing always wanted to take me with them when they went to see the airlines, because they were sharing the 777 that we were designing and making, and they also were selling the airplanes to them. And the airlines, this is one of the biggest decisions they ever make. And so they would ask me to come, and they'd ask me to give them an update on the airplane, technically, and the schedule and the quality, and which I love doing. And then when I would get through, I would sit down, and then the contracts and the legal people would start, the sales would start finishing their conversations about the purchase. And then I'd draw my airplane that you see there, and then I'd write the equations of motion on it. So it had its lift and its drag and its weight, and here's the speed it's going, and here are the pitching moments. Because I just love to have a little technical fun with myself. So I was in China, in Guangzhou, China, and the sales and marketing people were reviewing the sales campaign with China Southern Airlines, and the chairman of the board was sitting on the other side of the table. And so I finished and sat down and drew my airplane and started to write the equations of motion. And the chairman stops the meeting, and he says, excuse me. He says, Mr. Mulally, I see that it looks like you're drawing an airplane there. And I said, yes, sir. And I said, what? He said, I think that describes who you are. That describes what you're about. That describes your chop. That's in Chinese for everything about you. And I said, well, yes, sir. I live to help design and produce the very best airplanes in the world, and then support you with their service for the life of the airplane. I said, what do you think? And he said, well, Mr. Mulally, what I think is that this is the biggest decision we are ever going to make. And the success of this starts with you and the 777 leadership team on creating this product for us. So I would like you to sign this multi-billion-dollar contract with your signature in this airplane. So I turned around to the contracts and the lawyers. I said, what do you all think? They said, Ms. Mulally, you can't sign a multi-billion-dollar contract with a doodle of an airplane. I said, so I turned around to the chairman again and I said, what do you think now? And he said, well, what I think is I'm only going to sign this multi-billion-dollar contract if you sign it with that airplane. So I turned around to the lawyers and the contracts people again. I said, what do you think now? And he said, you know, Mr. Mulally, we really like your airplane. so ever since then, I've signed every document, all these multi-billion-dollar contracts. I've signed it with my Alan and the airplane. And another thing about this is that when I went to Boeing, I went to Ford. I was the first person that became the CEO of an automobile company that didn't grow up in the automobile company. So they were all over trying to figure out who I am and what I did. And they all had seen my airplane. So when I got there, they said, okay, we're really glad you're here. And we'd like to make a drawing of a car, maybe the F-150, where you can draw that and sign all your contracts with it like you did at Boeing. And so they started making the drawings, but they made them so sophisticated that I can do my airplane in about 2 nanoseconds, but I couldn't do the complicated F-150. It's a fantastic vehicle, #1 vehicle in the world. And so they came, I told that to them, they came back the next day and said, okay, Alan, we want you to keep signing with that diagram you have there, that airplane. I said, why is that? We're at the automobile company. I said, well, we haven't shared this with you, but we're also working on flying cars. So it looks just like a flying car. So you guys, I've used that signature for my entire life at Boeing and Ford. Okay, now, Sarah, let's go to the Ford example first.
The Ford example?
I mean, Susan, yeah, the Ford example. No, I'm sorry. Let's go to the Boeing example. Okay, now, this is the agreement that we signed with United Airlines. And it's unbelievable. It's handwritten on the left-hand side. This is the biggest decision they were going to ever make in this incredible airplane. And they really wanted to work together with us to make the finest airplane in the world. And you can see they have the working together in it. This is where the working together came from. We always had working together in a general sense, but I mean, working together took on a whole new meaning. And look at what the objectives were. It's going to have the dispatch reliability, the best in the industry, unheard of. Greatest customer appeal in the industry, really. And user-friendly, and everything works. This airplane with 9 million parts, it takes time to finish the design, but we've never had an airplane that was service ready to go and that everybody loved it more than anything else on the day that it went into service. And so there's our 3 leaders. Jim Guyette was at United, and Richard was sales at Boeing, and Phil was the leader of product development, and I was working for him doing the 777. And so this was incredible, and I want to show you how it turned out. Okay, next slide, please. Here it is. Here's the rollout. This is the rollout of the 777 airplane. And you can see about 110,000 people walking up to the airplane. And if you get really close, you can see them holding their children up. So the children can touch that nacelle, can touch the bottom of the airplane. And then I could hear them saying, okay, I didn't make the bottom structures here, but if you go up board, I did the seats, I did this, I did this. And I mean, they're all smiling. And then you can see also that all the airlines logos are on there. And then if you look up towards the window, you can see the working together. And if you look up on the top, you can see the working together in red. And so here's working together on the airplane. Whoa, how did that happen? Next slide, please. Okay, here are the pilots, the first pilots, John Cashman and Kenny Higgins, dear friends. And in the aerospace business, you don't usually know a vehicle works until your first flight. And you do all your testing and verification and validation, but you only know it when it first flight. So the only people that are on the first flight are the pilots. And commercial airplanes usually 2 pilots, fighters usually 1 pilot. And so we always would put their names underneath the window to celebrate them and thank them for leading the first flight. So they came to see me the day before the first flight. Their names were on the airplane. And they said, Alan, this is the finest experience we've ever had. We've never been included and asked to help design the airplane and the production and work with all the airlines. So we're using all of their knowledge to make the finest airplane in the world. And so we would like you to replace our names on the airplane with working together. So now we are representing everybody, all the stakeholders. And so I called a meeting with the whole team, and they were all just in awe. And then finally, both John and Kenny said, okay, here we go. Please have it done. We'll see you in the morning. So we changed the name, and they took off. Usually their first flight's an hour and a half or so. And their first flight was about 5.5 hours. And so the airplane was working so well that they actually started the verification and validation testing. And so we were ahead of schedule from day 1 of the flight test. So working together was appreciated and loved by everyone. Okay, next slide, please. Now, Ford. And here's Bill Ford, one of my most favorite people in the world. And when he called me and he shared everything with me, I knew that I had a partner that I could work with, because this was going to be transparency at his best. He shared everything about how the fact was that they had bought Aston Martin and Jaguar and Land Rover and Volvo and Mazda, and they kind of forgot about Ford, and that was 70% of the business. They had union agreements that didn't work. They were, all of the Ford companies were all separate for every country around the world. So there's no integration, no uniting them together on the product and the process, because Bill Ford set them up that way because he wanted not only for them, people around the world, to have the best cars and trucks, but also he wanted to provide great employment for them. And so very little working together across. So he actually said to me when he was recruiting me, he said, so Alan, if you need to be the chairman of the board, in addition to the CEO, I will give up that also. And here he is, the titular head of the Ford family that owns Ford. So this is, and I said, Bill, if I were to come, I would only come if you stayed and we worked together, because the decisions we have to make together are tremendous. It's going to be redoing a lot of things that have happened in the past, plus a lot of things new. And we really, this is an opportunity for us that only we can do if we do this together. And he is one of the finest working together partners I've ever had. Well, next to the 3 of you. Okay, so next slide, please. So back to that compelling vision again. And so we ended up adopting, even though Ford, when I asked him how much, what the profits were for the year when I was going to arrive, he said, we're going to lose $17 billion. I said, oh, okay. And so I knew all about that. And so we went back to the compelling vision. And this is Henry Ford's original compelling vision, 1925, opening the highways to all mankind. And at this point in history, he had 50% market share. And the last line in this advertisement, where he shared everything about how he was doing it, and which is all most of the elements of working together, he also said, our goal, even though we're very successful, is to provide this safe and efficient transportation to everybody so they can move around safely and efficiently. So next slide, please. And for all of the listeners, these are all in your slides, so you can be able to study them. And here is the compelling vision, the strategy, and the plan for the Ford Motor Company. And down the left hand, you can see the one team, the one plan, the one goal. And remember all those wonderful principles and practices? I shared those when I got there with all the Ford people, but I also wanted them to own it. So I said, let's look at it together. I welcome your suggestions. And so we worked on it for a few weeks. And then they came in one day with the description on the right-hand side, and you notice that they organized them by FORD. So I knew we were on our way, because this was Ford's idea of having a plan, a compelling vision, strategy, plan, and having the expected behaviors be perfectly clear. And across the bottom, when you're setting this, you can see how we were serving the entire world. That's the circle on the left. You can see the areas of the world. Also, the size of the vehicles worldwide. The largest component is the smaller vehicles, the medium and large. Then we use our working together leadership and management system above to create profitable growth for all the stakeholders. So there's the line on the right-hand side. And you can see the more detail of we've focused on Ford. We sold all those other brands, a complete family of vehicles, small, medium, and large, cars, utilities, and trucks, a best in class and quality and safety and smart and great value. And the biggest one is that we were going to work together as one team across the world to integrate Ford and use all of our talent to create one Ford that was profitably growing to serve all the stakeholders and the greater good.
Wow. Wow. This gives me
Indeed.
chills. Gives me
Indeed.
chills. It's so neat. So neat. So, Alan, another question for you. You're obviously, you did a fantastic job starting way back on one of your earlier slides with great role models that you had and your parents and others, and then carrying that throughout your life. And then when you got the opportunity to go from one iconic company to another iconic company and lead it, the way that you were able to help shape that culture so that they could be, you know, the profitable growth and the working together globally. That's what gives me the chills, that part. And you're known for the working together leadership and management system. So could you share more about that with us, please?
Absolutely. And again, for our audience, this is not everywhere. So this is really fun to share with you. And you got a chance to study it. Plus, those references will help you in so many ways to implement it, whether it's just for yourself, whether it's for your family, whether it's for the organizations you're in, it's for your company. It all works the same on working together. And the way you said it, Debbie, is really neat, because the working together leadership and management system implements those principles and practices. It's so specific on how we implement that. Okay, so next slide, please, Sarah. And here it is, the working together leadership and management system. Now you can see that it's the leadership and the management system. So it includes the leadership by everybody, and then also how you manage everybody, all the stakeholders, so that we're all contributing to creating this value. And you can see that the 5 circles in the middle are the 5 elements of the management system. We did the principles and practices, and with each one, you can follow the dashed line and see and we covered the principles and practices. The governance process, really important. You got to include the chairman of the board itself, include all of these elements, and everybody knows everything, because you're also doing the special attention meetings following the business plan reviews. And then you can see the leadership team, and you can looking down the right-hand side. So we need those professional skills for project and program and business management, engineering, manufacturing, procurement. You want to bring the best people you have, and then have lifelong learning and continuous improvement. Two, shareholder center, coaching and facilitating. This sounds like the two of you, or the three of you. I mean, coaching and facilitating. Now, see, it doesn't say command and control because you know everything and you're telling them what to do. It's how do you pull people together around a compelling vision, a comprehensive strategy, and relentless implementation? And then you look down even further, and how do you teach them that? How do you consult with them? How do you coach them? And the way you do that is that you implement this system, all five of these elements. And so the next part is then you've selected all the leaders, you're representing all the stakeholders. You see the zero tolerance for violating the process and the behaviors. And you can see all the characteristics of the people. I'll be darned, it starts with humility, love, and service. I wonder where they got that. And so, and you can see civility and resilience and authenticity and positive mindsets and psychologically safe so people can feel comfortable sharing. Because one thing I didn't mention is this having a psychologically safe environment is so important because you can really have no jokes at anybody else's expense. And the reason is it's never funny. It's never funny. But people will go along to get along, just kind of trying to get by. But if they feel like they could be taken advantage of, then they're going to be very careful about sharing that red or that yellow if they're going to be made fun of or whatever. So psychologically safe is really, really important. In the creating value roadmap, we talked a lot about the product, the process, the people. We go out at least 5 years. In Boeing's case, we go out 50 years because the airplanes are going to last that long. And so the point is that every year we're going to work on the revenue side and the margin side so that we remove the bar for this year, and then 5 years out, we go out. So we're always looking out in the future. And that brings us to the business plan review. And I start out the meeting going through the vision, the strategy, and the plan, and the working together process. And every member of the team goes through their strategy to contribute to what we're accomplishing. And they also go through the status, the red, the yellows, and greens. But they also start out by going through the business environment. So every person, engineering, manufacturing, procurement, shares what's going on in the world so that not only do we find the things that we need to work on that would be hurting our plan, but we look for the opportunities to actually increase our plan. And so at the end of every year, we have worked for an entire year, and we have now a better plan in the years going forward, not just the one out 5 years, but we actually improve the plan in the near term. So that's the system that creates the value for all the stakeholders and the greater good.
Yeah. Alan, I love seeing this on one page because it really captures it all. And what strikes me is, in my experience, is that some leaders do some of this well. But it needs to be whole. You need to do it all. And this describes that, right?
And say, and to your point, you look at these 5 things, and that's everything you do. Just think if you, I know you guys know this, but for our listeners, there's a business plan review every week, and the leadership team is leading it. They invite guests to it. They share the results of it out to everybody and around, and back comes new reds and yellows and greens. So everybody knows what's going on. They know what they're doing. The guests that come to the business plan review that we always loved were the guests, because every once in a while, pretty frequently, they would see one of the leaders talking about a new red, and that happened to be the red that they're working on. And they were so excited that everybody knew that they were working on the red, and we knew we had a red, and that they're working on it. So instead of feeling embarrassed or anything, they would sit up ever straight with a big smile, saying, and then they'd say, "Okay, I've got to go now. I got to go finish working on that red to turn to the yellows and greens." And then you look down. The other thing you said too, Susan, you look down on the right-hand side, and you see the life of growth using stakeholder-centered coaching for all the participants. So including me, every one of us has 2 or 3 things that we agreed to with the team that we're working on to help us be even better leaders and even better at working together ourselves and supporting others.
Right. The other thing I've seen is, and since I left Boeing, I worked for a startup for a little while, and then I've coached and consulted for smaller businesses. This is scalable. So it doesn't have to be a huge corporation. As a matter of fact, Debbie and I use it for Seasons Leadership. We have our BPR every week.
That's exactly, it works no matter what size your organization, starting with yourself. Can you imagine if you just put a little schedule on your calendar and said, well, I think I'm going to go through my life in this meeting every week, and what's my compelling vision, and why am I here? What's my strategy for achieving it? And what's the status? And see, it's not like it's negative now. I mean, you can turn your reds to yellows and greens. You can ask people for help. You can share it. Like if you're married, for example, maybe even do that, with your significant other. Maybe even include the kids as you're going forward. It works for every size of an organization to move you forward with lifelong learning and continuous improvement.
It's great. Well, that reminds me, you're also known for your work-life balance. So I don't know how that's possible with all you've done. Can you talk more about that?
Well, what's the first thing that's impossible about it, Susan, is that I never understood having 2 lives. And I can remember from day one, somebody say work-life balance. I was like, okay, let's see. You have one life that, and then you have another life that's your work. Aren't you kind of the same person? Isn't your work just one part of your life? And wouldn't you want to have like one life? And so I'd like to share with you a little bit more, and look over on the right-hand side, and I want to start with the word authenticity, because Sarah and I found this and in the dictionary, and when you look up a word in the dictionary, and I'm very fortunate to help work together with Sarah when she's editing things, and which is really fun. But more often than not, we're reading a sentence and we don't understand what the word means. So we look it up, and the dictionary has so many different definitions of any one word, but not authenticity. Okay, next slide, please, Susan. Okay, look at this. This is the definition of authenticity. I know, it's really simple. An alignment between your beliefs, your values, and your behaviors. Whoa. An alignment using Francis Hesselbein's wonderful message is who you are is going to have more to do with your success and what you do in your life than anything else. So that's why she was such a great coach on how to be and how to do. And so what we're talking about now is an alignment between who you are and what you do. So you're one person. And the only way you're going to do that is if your beliefs and values are aligned with your behaviors. Now you can see why I always selected the behaviors in the working together, because that's what we can see. And I can't judge your beliefs and values. And people come with a lot of different beliefs and values. But here's what happens. When you are aligned, when you have to be this way and follow those behaviors, or respecting each other and loving each other and helping each other, then you move really fast from I to we and me to service. And so now your beliefs and values of humility, love, and service get really aligned. And now your lifelong learning and continuous improvement. Okay, now, how does that influence your life? Next slide, please, Susan. And here's how it impacts your life. So instead of having a work-life balance, you can have one authentic, integrated life. And it's your life's work of service. Oh, and by the way, that's also your love made visible. So whether you're with your family, whether you're by yourself, it's your spiritual thoughts, your community thoughts, your occupation thoughts, you're the same person now in serving all of those participants. And so the stress that people have about acting one way at work and another way at home and another way in the community all goes away, because you now, I know you are one, and it's your life's work of service. And you can see over on the right-hand side, Sarah and I just shared with you, it applies to everything. It applies to you as a person. It applies to your business plan review, your family plan, or your family meeting. If you do that, you just fabulous. And a lot of people, led by Marshall Goldsmith and Sarah, started the life plan review, where in their 100 coaches, which is about 370 coaches, I think, Sarah, that they actually started their equivalent of a business plan review called a life plan review. And then they include a number of the other coaches to be on their team using stakeholder centers coaching. And so now everybody's helping you, and you're helping everybody else move forward in this direction by working on those qualities that enable you to be one person with one life, with a life of work, of service. And rather than replace the word work, we thought that might be too early, so we add work of service. So you're serving, and you're serving with humility and love.
Love
What do
it.
you think?
I love it.
I love it. Alan, this might be a good time to throw another question in, because you've alluded to it a couple of times about doing the family plan review or using a BPR with your family. Now, we've heard that you do this. You use a version of the BPR with your family, and we know it's super personal, but would you be willing to share that with us?
Well, I really appreciate the way you said that, with the simply personal too. But the neatest thing about working together is that it makes everything transparent everywhere, which is fabulous. And I'll be glad to share that with you. Let me look around and see if Nikki or the kids are here. They've heard this too many times from me. Yes. So Nikki and I have been married for 53 years, and we have 5 children, as I mentioned. And I think, and it was our plan. And after maybe the second or third child, every 2 years, I approached Nikki one time and I said, Nikki, this is getting to be very sophisticated with all of these people in our family. And so we need to have a business plan review every week. And she said, Alan, this is not Boeing. This is our family. We're not have a business plan review. So okay. And so I waited, and I thought about it, and I came back the next week and said, okay, honey, you know what I recommend we do? I recommend that every week we have a family meeting. She goes, well, what would we do in the family meeting? What would the table of contents look like? And I said, well, first thing I'd recommend is when we come home from church on Sunday, and then we ended up with 7 people in our family, that all 7 of us will go around through the house, find all of our stuff, take them back to our room or back to their cubbies. And because in a week with 7 people there, it looks like a bomb's gone off. So we just get everything put back together. And then the second one is that we all go back to our room, pick out all our laundry, including mom and dad for every one of these, bring them down to the laundry. We have 2 washers and 2 dryers because there's 7 people. We wanted to get that all done on Sunday, so we didn't have to do it all week long. And so they would do the wash, and everybody would bring down the laundry, dump it out on the kitchen table, and then we sort the socks and everything else. And you can see why this is a compelling vision to do this together, because no one signed up to sort everybody else's socks. And so that takes about 5 minutes when you have all 7. They take that back. They come back with their loosely calendar now, notebook. And remember, they were starting about 3rd grade. They were be at the family meeting because they love sitting there with everybody. And then we go around the table, and everybody would go through their calendar of the coming week, and then they'd share what help they might need. Like, do they need a taxi cab service or cheerleading support, or people that attend some of their events, and so we all write down notes about what we're going to do to help. I'd go back to Boeing on Monday, share commitments I made, was added to my schedule. You guys all knew I might be gone for an hour or 2 hours, but I'll be back. And so then the next agenda item was we'd go through the vision, the strategy, and plan together and share any experiences that we had that people could learn from. I'll give you an example. That's unbelievable, the way that people learned the kids learned how to do this, including mom and dad. So Molly one time had a dance recital, and she needed to drive to pick her up from school, take her to the dance recital, then they take her home. And Chris, our oldest son, had just gotten his driver's license and liked to drive. And so she asked Chris, could you please pick me up and take me and then pick me up and stay? You're welcome to stay. He said, oh yeah, that'd be great. And then take me home. So in one of the business plan or family meeting reviews, we were going around the table, and Molly says, okay, so Chris, I just wanted to share with you that I think you forgot to pick me up to take me to the dance recital. And I was really disappointed for a couple of reasons. One, I missed the dance recital. And 2, I was going to share it with you. And that meant a lot to me. And I wish none of us will ever forget Chris's face. I mean, he just got white, and he said something really nice, and you can appreciate how she was saying that to him and how he was responding. I'll never let you down again, and blah, blah, blah. And so they got so good at having these conversations that, feedback or feed forward was all a piece of cake to them, because they were dealing with reality in a very positive way, loving them up, even though they were disappointed. Mm-hmm. And so the next item was, the last item was, whatever you're going to do next week that could impact our family, you need to tell us now. So, if you're going to steal something from the grocery store, or whether you're going to get an award for something, just let us know ahead of time, okay? Because it affects our whole family. And so we always had 2 meetings a year with all the family wherever we were around the world. And after a couple of drinks, after they got to be 18, every time they would start laughing about the family meetings and things that had come up. And one time it sounded like that maybe they didn't like that family meeting. So I said, did you not like it? And if you didn't, why did you come? You didn't have to come. You're a volunteer, just like all of the employees that we've been talking about. And then one of, I think it was Amanda, said, Dad, do you remember what the last agenda item was on our family meeting? I said, no, I don't. I said, you handed out the allowance. Of course we came to the family meeting. Okay, so anyway, you can see that everything we've talked about, whether it's yourself, whether it's your family, whether it's the organizations, that there's something unbelievably positive about working together to serve with humility and love, to create value for all the greater good. Okay, now, one more slide. And this is an exercise that Sarah and I made this for you because it really, people have found it so valuable. And I just filled this out for myself. And Sarah's filled it out for herself, and all of the CEOs I've consulted with, we asked them to fill it out also. And so you'll have a lot of fun on your trip, Debbie, filling this out. It's great, so fun. So who are
Taking
you?
notes.
Yeah, who are you? Why are you who you are? Since you guys asked me that, what do you do and how do you do it? Well, there are my answers for it. Now, self-awareness is really important. So you might want to ask the people in your life, maybe ask the people that you serve with, and see what they say, and do it in a really nice way. And if you're creating this culture we're talking about, they'll share it with you, and they'll share it too with a positive way. And then see that lifelong learning and that continuous improvement. Man, you're doing what most people don't do after they're 35, and they stop lifelong learning and continuous improvement. And now we're doing it for our entire life. And now it really is our one life, and is our life's work of service. So that's just an example for you that really gets you off to a good start on working together. Now, the last thing, I just want to go to the next slide, please, Susan. Here's the first page of the references, and Sarah, bless her heart, has made this so that when you guys get your document, then you can click on it and it'll take you right to it. And the next slide, please. Is it a second one? And the next slide is the third one. And there are thousands of these things written about our working together leadership management system. And Sarah and I went through it for you and selected the ones that you can learn a lot from really fast, but also not only about the principles and practices, but it teaches you how to do it, exactly how to do it. And it's everything that we have said with clarity. And then the last slide, I just wanted to be the one to say to the three of you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you so much for participating on helping develop this and sharing this with all of the people that you are teaching and that you're consulting with and you're coaching. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you for sharing all of this with us today. And Sarah, for all that you've contributed to this as well. It's been amazing. If you have the time, we have a few more questions for you.
I can imagine. I mean, to seek to understand before one seeks to be understood. I think you have working together characteristic qualities.
Thank you so much. That's a high compliment.
That's great. Well, I'm going to stop sharing the slides so we can really get into it.
Great.
Good.
All right. Susan, would you like to ask first, or?
How about you go? You go ahead, Debbie.
Okay. So Alan, as we've been going through the whole working together discussion today, one thing that came up for Susan and I was, because we're both leadership coaches, and we believe coaching is a key element in a leader's ability to successfully implement this. A lot of leaders can watch this podcast, they can study the charts and everything, but the magic's in actually, and I liked how you said it on one chart, positively implementing this. So what are your thoughts about that, about coaching being a key element in implementation?
Well, I think you actually have said it, Debbie, in the way you asked the question, because think of you being the leader, the CEO, and you are leading the business plan review, which pulls everything together. And you are who you are. So you can never do this if you're not the kind of person that we're talking about, the kind of people that the three of you are. So the first thing is be the example of the be and the do of what you're looking for in everybody else. And then lead and manage the system with that person. And start it with the business plan review, because in that business plan review, you're going to go through the principles and practices. I have a chart for that. I go through the way we govern, the qualities of the leader and all the participants, the creating value roadmap. That's part of the business plan review. And then also the business plan review itself. And so can you imagine how fast you would develop this culture? because everybody is there every week. And if you showed a red one, can you imagine a leader ever coming back the next week and say to everybody, I was really busy, to heck with all of you. I didn't have time to work on that. Well, see, they're not working for me anymore. They're working for all of us and our compelling vision of creating that fantastic airplane or a car or truck or whatever. And so all you have to do is be it and do it. But start with that, be it. And that's where that self-awareness and understanding that really comes together. And you're doing it for including all those elements all the time. See, it's not like you have extra stuff to do, because that business plan review pulls everything together. And out goes the data, back it comes with new reds and yellow. The kids, over the 47 years, wherever we were around the world with the kids, I think I missed 10 or 12 BPRs. They would join me on watching it because they had so much fun watching all the colors change. They wanted to see everybody turn the red to a yellow and a green and blah and blah and blah. And remember, the CEO, I'm not sitting there asking questions like, oh, what did you think about this or do that? Do it. No, we're going to be back together next week. It's going to be great. And so the leader moves now into facilitating and coaching. So what you two and Sarah, all three of you been doing with your consulting and your teaching and your coaching, that is the key, absolutely the key to your contribution to helping people understand this and be it and do it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, I'm wondering, Alan, because what you're talking about is this connected culture and collaboration by design. And I know you've talked about it, but why do you think it works? And does it ever not work?
Oh, that's good. That's a good question. Can you see the power of seek to understand before you seek to be understood? I mean, look at the three of you. I mean, and how do you enhance lifelong learning? Seek to understand before you start trying to tell people stuff. So the answer is that it always works. And here's why it always works. And remember the business plan review. And remember, we're going through all the reds, yellows, and greens. Well, and as you know this from our work on the 777, every once in a while, because it's a creative process, you have 4 million parts that have never existed before. Mm-hmm. And now you're creating all of those and a production plan and an operating plan. Well, you're going to have a lot of things that you learn along the way and as a designer, that's why a lot of engineers say, can you just give me a break? I've got all these requirements and I'm trying to match all of these, the safety and fuel efficiency and performance and blah, blah, blah. It takes a lot of ingenuity. Well, you have a lot of iterations. And so the neat thing is that to welcome that change, welcome the change that's going on in the world, because that's all positive now. It's not like everybody's scared to death because they can't keep doing the same thing. Just love up that change and the fact that you have a system that is sharing with you this change, and you have a process that you can share the reds and yellows. And if you need help with a red one that you showed, it was your responsibility, then you can say that when you need the help, and we'll put it on the special attention meeting, because we have 4 of those a month that follow the BPR, 1 on everything about strategy, 2 on everything about the product, 3 on everything about the process, and everything about people. So that is all there. It's all organized. So everything that comes up in a color, we're going to be able to do that in special attention and turn the reds to yellows to greens. So and now also, you notice on the last of the BPR, it says better plan. So if you ended up with a red and you can't figure out how to turn it to yellow and green, you've got the whole talent. You got your whole family. You got all your stakeholders are going to help you find a new plan. Make a little modification, because there's always a way forward on whatever it is your compelling vision is. There's always a way forward if you work together using everybody's fantastic knowledge and skills. That makes sense?
It does, and really it brings more for me a deeper understanding of what humility means.
Exactly. Just think that, see, that's the definition of humility, not what some of the parts in the dictionary say. That's not what way we use it. We use it meaning that you know what you know, but you know that's only a small bit of what there is to know. So any situation that you're in, why aren't we asking a question first? Just to make sure you understand what's going on before you start quizzing them about it and before you start telling them answers and things like that. So humility means that you're humble. That it doesn't mean you're weak or anything else, or you have some other calling. No, it means that you recognize that you know what you know, and it's only part of what there is to know. And your goal is to help get all of that information out there so you can work together to create value for the greater good. And I'm glad you said it that way, Susan. That's great.
Yeah, it's really great. Can you tell us what your definition of success is?
Well, I'm feeling by the looks on your smiles it might be today. I mean, if this is not successful and you look like you're looking with these smiles and the questions you've asked and who you are and what you do, and I'm maybe made a little contribution to that because of your great questions, I can't think of anything better that happened today so far. And so my idea of success is service. I mean, it goes up to the highest level, but whatever religion, the highest level of a belief in humanity and the superpower of humanity working together. Holy cow. So and I think you know immediately if it's in the process of being successful or whether it is successful. But the most important thing about success is continuous improvement. Mm-hmm. See, it's never just one thing, just continuous improvement. Mm-hmm. So like say you had a couple of things that they said, we want you to listen. We've agreed with you that you need to listen better, but we agree that you should maybe ask a question first. Mm-hmm. And so you get to the end of the year and everybody's giving you feedback and they say, well, you're good on the first one, but I think you still can make some improvement on the second one. Well, thank you very much. Can you imagine you have the whole place working for you?
Yeah.
You also know when you're successful because somebody told you, thank you. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Sarah.
That's great. Thank you, Alan.
Yes, thank you very much. And this next question is about one of those thank yous we have for you. Susan and I launched a Patreon site with Seasons Leadership because we wanted to reach more people, a broader range of people than we were currently reaching. And we were so excited because you, Alan, were our first patron on that Patreon site. And we were surprised pleasantly and so excited. We couldn't believe it. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
The question part of this is, what inspired you to join and support us?
Okay, now share with everybody what that title means.
Yeah, the Patreon. Yeah. Patreon is a site, a subscriber site, where we can publish all the things that we're working on to help leaders be more excellent leaders. And you sign up for it and you get access to all of that.
Well, I think you just answered your question. But why would I join you? I know you. I knew you. I loved you up because you guys were making great contributions with humility, love, and service. And so I was thrilled. I had no idea I would be the first one. All I know is the minute I saw it, I signed up because that meant that I'd be just one of the people that would be backing you up on what you were doing to serve the greater good. And if just saying this to everybody else, just check out their website. Holy cow. Debbie and Susan have made, I consider, one of the best websites ever, because they've included all of their work there. You don't, there's all kinds of things that they can do if you want their help and their counseling and things like that. But they've also shared with you enough that you'll want to call them up, because all the things they believe in, which start with this working together uh, for the greater good of individuals and teams, are what they're about. And they've had experience to do it. They know everything that we've talked about today. And so you got a great resource for you, just like I always have had with them.
Thank you,
Thank
Alan.
you, Alan. So I have one final question for you. What's next for you?
Well, what's next is I have 2 more meetings today, and with a chance to serve.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have a couple of activities where I'm serving myself, and including a great workout, because I love sports still, and so I've been really focused on physically taking care of myself. And so when you think of that, your family meeting or your business plan review or your family meeting or your personal review, so the neatest thing is that when you do that regularly, you're going to answer that question every time you do the review, because now you're not wondering what's happening or whether you're happy or not. You have a set of servants that you're living with humility and love, and you're assessing how that's going in a positive way. And even if you have a red one, you say, just like I did when I was at Ford. I didn't share this with you. So when we started the business plan review, I selected all the leaders. They were great leaders in every position. I also selected all the behaviors. They got to kind of like that, because that's not the way it was at Ford, because there's not a lot of working together and they didn't know each other. And so we had 300 charts with our 14-member team, 300 charts total. And we started the business plan review, and all 300 were green. Green. I mean, they're on schedule, on plan. And on the only one that had even I think even the finance person, he had for a while, he had a $17 billion loss because he was sharing all the finances. But he didn't show that as red, because he kind of didn't, he thought maybe that was good that everybody knew that. And I said, no, yeah, but I mean, it's against the plan. We're supposed to be profitably growing. How's that? So, but anyway, he was slow too. And here's the reason. And the reason why is that Ford at that time was like most companies, is you never brought an issue to your leader, let alone the CEO, if you didn't have a solution. And so now you're managing a secret. And that's why most people can't get stuff done, because you don't know what the status is, so you can't work on it together. So 300 charts are green. Every leader's going through their charts, green, 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 green. And then, and I would say every once in a while, this went over like 3 or 4 weeks. So I would say the next week, now everything was green. And I'd say really nicely, so you all, is there anything in your area of responsibility that is not going well today, since we're losing $17 billion? And eye contact would go to the floor, and they'd say nothing. And I said, so that'll really help if we start really understanding what the situation is, so we can work together, turn the reds to yellows to greens. And then Mark Fields was leading the Americas, and they had a new vehicle in Oakville, Canada, that had a door actuator issue, and on this SUV, and so they closed down production stopped production because we had all agreed we were only going to deliver the finest quality vehicles. And we turned out going from near the worst quality to when I left, we had the highest quality, almost equal to Toyota of all the automobile companies around the world. And they were having the meeting the night before. They were having their meeting, getting ready for doing their business plan review, getting ready for the Ford one. And up comes the launch vehicle chart, and it has 3 columns for the product situation, the schedule, and then the financial impact. And it was green, green, and green, and they had stopped production on it. And Mark says to the team, I think that's one of those red things Alan's talking about. I mean, no kidding. I mean, and so one of the senior vice presidents report to him, you guys, he said to Mark, he said, well, we can do that, Mark, but good luck. It was nice to know you, because you don't know whether Alan means that about he wants the reds. You don't have a solution. He might just replace you, like everybody's done in the past here. So I said, well, I think we need to trust him and see what happens. And if I have to give up my career, then at least that's something that everybody will learn. And so, next day it's green, 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 and up comes this red chart from Mark. And I mean, the eye contact goes to the floor again. Remember, everybody's watching from around the world. Yeah. And they're looking down, they're looking sideways, they're looking at me, and they're looking at Mark. And then Mark explains they got this issue. They don't have a solution yet, but they're working on it. And I started to clap. And you see kind of the sound of that. It almost sounds like a gun going off. And so they told me later, everybody was there said they thought that was a sign that the 2 doors behind me on the 11th floor of the world headquarters of the Ford Motor Company are going to open up, and 2 large human beings are going to come in and extract Mark, because they'd seen that kind of stuff before. And so I said to Mark, that is great visibility. Thank you so much. And then I asked them, is there any thoughts that you might have to help him out initially? And 3 of the leaders had a comment, great. But the one that got me the most was the head of manufacturing worldwide. Said, Mark, we're going to figure this out. You're going to need some engineering guys that know that product and how to change the parts out. So I'll get them up to you in Oakville, Canada right away, so they'll be ready to go. And next week, it was the only red. And everybody's looking at Mark, and he's still there. And so I was noticing that. So I asked Mark to move over around the round table and sit next to me next week, but I forgot to tell him why. He told me later he thought that's because I was going to announce that he was fired. And so the next week he's sitting next to me, and everybody's looking at him. They're going, holy cow, he's still red, and he's getting closer to the CEO. How's that working? So then next week or so, it turned to yellow. Next turn, it turned to red. Turned to green, and all the vehicles started flowing around the world. What do you think that 300 slides looked like the following week? Not all red, but they looked like a rainbow. And there was lots of green, lots of yellow, not as much red, but quite a few reds. And we all sat back and we all looked at each other, and we all knew that no matter what happened to us going forward, whether the tsunamis, the wars that were going around, the economic situations, the sustainability issues, the fact that we had the largest economic slowdown since the Great Depression in 2008, no matter what happened, the competition has gotten greater, is that we had a system that could handle all of that change because we were going to work together. And we didn't take, at Ford, I didn't ask for government money. We didn't go into bankruptcy. We paid back the $23.5 billion small home improvement loan that we bought to finance all of that plan. And Our market share went up, became the #1 brand in the United States, fastest growing in the world. And maybe one of the coolest things, well, in the stock price went from a low $1 to $18.37, which is approximately a 1,837% increase in the stock price. But the one that just was phenomenal was the employee survey. And the employee survey was around 34% positive. And 34 to 45 is pretty much what all companies are around the world. We were a little lower because they all knew we were in trouble. And when we implemented the working together leadership management system, and we resulted in this performance for the good of everybody, when I left 8 years later, it was at 95% positive on the employee survey, and in a unionized company, just like Boeing was with the IEM, we had the UAW, and 95% positive. It was the highest in the world at that time. So there's another reason why I've invested in you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Alan and Sarah, for being here today. Thank you so much for this rich conversation and all the slides you've provided and information for people. A word to the listeners: what are you waiting for? Get started. Use this.
Okay, now, Debbie, one comment about that great suggestion to them, and it goes back to Sarah. Sarah, you'll see that when you read all about her, but she is the editor. She used to be the co-editor with Frances Hasselbein on the Leader Journal and the Frances Hasselbein Institute, which she's considered to be one of the best leaders of all time. And Frances passed away. Beloved Frances passed away last year at 107. She's a dear friend of both of ours. And Sarah's now the chief editor. And a lot of the references that are in our document for you are Leader to Leader Journal articles. And she has one that she did special that included all of Frances's. It's right behind me. See right there? There you go. Yeah, and I said it to my dear friends here. And that'd be the first thing that I would go look at to follow your recommendation, Debbie, because you just feel so good knowing about the be and the do that now you are ready to do what you're doing with an unbelievable be part. So thanks a lot, and I wish you the best on your continuing service with your wonderful humility and love, my friends.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. See you next time.
Okay, great. Bye.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us today. We hope that you were inspired by this conversation.
And we invite you to join our community on Patreon. See the link below. There you will find more resources to help you on your leadership journey.
Make sure to join us next time for more conversation about leadership excellence.